Right. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Dr. Anita, for lovely introduction. And then, as Kushan mentioned, it's very impressive, and then full detail. And then, of course, to see your career, definitely, I believe that will give some insights to other students who are joining today as well. So thanks, Kushan, inviting me and then giving time to talk to the students as well. Probably I will not go into too much detail about the global context because Dr. Anit has already touched the how Lean Six Sigma can contribute to, and then you as a professional and then qualified person in Lean Six Sigma, what sort of opportunities you got. I will be probably focusing a bit more into the Australian context, and then before I start on talking about Australia, so I'm not sure, Kushan. I think in some of the introductory material you would have shared my profile as well. So I will briefly touch a couple of my background. So I graduated from production engineering from University of Peradeniya in 2001, and then I joined to Nestlé pretty much after graduation, and then uh, worked in a couple of areas, predominantly in production, and then later I got involved in SAP implementation project in Nestlé India, Nestlé Sri Lanka as well. Then I got into a continuous improvement manager, industrial performance manager. So that's the title. That is where I met Kushan as well. And then after few years, I was going back to production as a production manager. Spent a couple of years there. Then at some point, I decided to leave Nestle just only because of migrating to Australia. So I came to Australia, and I was lucky enough to join Nestle Australia as well because it's not an internal transfer from Nestle to Nestle. So probably one of the key skill set which I carried from Nestle Sri Lanka was again a lean TPM experience where I got working as a continuous improvement manager and driving. We had a very specific initiative called Nestle Continuous Excellence, which is a global initiative where we really focused on lean TPM, and then of course that is where we got the certification as well. Of course, that is the internal certification. Nestle being a global company, so they had their own resources, and then they provide certification up to green belt, and then people like Kushan, so they got that certification, and then after they leave Nestle, so they got extra certification as well. So that is how Nestle worked around these lean TPM initiatives. And coming back to my story, so I joined Nestlé Australia again, worked a couple of years in the continuous improvement performance and then operations roles as well. And after that, again, I worked in another global leading dairy company called Lactalis. It's a French company you may have heard. So now they have, in fact, acquired Chester Dairy company. Fit into a different field, printing industry, and then few other areas to get a bit different exposure, which really helped me to grow myself. And then currently, I am working again back in production, back in manufacturing company called Melrose Health. We are pretty much focusing on the supplement product. So that's where I'm right now. Going back to our topic, Lean Six Sigma, again focusing more on in Australia. Australia, you may have heard last 20 years there's a huge shift in the manufacturing industry. If you just Google, even you can collect a lot of information. There is a huge automobile industry. That is where a lot of our German tech qualified people migrated to Australia, but unfortunately, because of the high labor cost, so they gradually close down all these manufacturing facilities, and then they are pretty much depending on only the service providing to the all these automobile users, basically the car vehicle owners. And then it heavily depending on being a huge continent, it's a huge land area, massive land area. So logistic is one of the biggest um, uh, industry, I should say, because there are different states. Very specifically, they are producing like fruits and then vegetables, wines, or different the areas focus and they manufacture different commodities, so that those needs to be transferred across all these states. So that is where logistic become a real big industry here. And so I'm trying to link how Australia operating versus how someone got this lean TPM experience, knowledge, can contribute to the Australian economy as a professional. So now, if you think about leans and then even Six Sigma, so they talk about reducing waste and then minimizing waste, basically to add only focus on the value added activities in value chain. So being logistic is a huge industry here, so definitely anyone can understand how much important to have a professional knowledge, professional skill set around these areas, where how you can contribute to the logistics operation in Australia. Because end of the day, as I said, the labor costs are one of the biggest contributor in Australian production and then services as well. So because of that, it is really important to understand how someone can contribute if someone is joining to a company, how to reduce um, um, the non-value adding activities and then focusing on the value adding activities. So that is where your Lean Six Sigma activities, the knowledge can definitely help. And coming back to the manufacturing, because food being obviously you can't, and also something very specific to these people, especially Australians, they like to consume Australian made products. So every most of the our consumables, when you go to supermarket, you can see there's a logo with how much Australian manufacturing contributed to this particular product, chocolate or any drinks or anything. So they mention there's a scale. In that scale, you can see either raw material sourced from Australia or completely manufacturing from Australia. So that really add value to the customer consumers, and then they prefer to buy that sort of heavily locally manufactured products. So because of that, still there are some industries, especially as I mentioned, wine.
You're on mute, Mr. Dharshana.
Darshana, you're on mute, Darshana.
Right. So people can really contribute to the manufacturing industry here, and even though automobile industry is not really active right now, but still service industry is quite big. Even education and then other services and manufacturing industry in food and beverages sector. Like there are still quite a lot of giant operating in Australia, Nestlé, Fonterra, and all different, for example, Lactalis. So there are huge companies operating. So people who got the experience, got the knowledge in Lean Six Sigma definitely can play a bigger role. And obviously, I think if anyone is interested in migrating, you may have already seen skill migration is the best option to come into Australia. I know some people come student as well, but there's a long way to get into the permanent residency status if you come on that pathway as a student. But if you come under skill migration, so they are straight away getting into the permanent residency pathway. So that is one of the best. As a personally, I recommend if you can get into that pathway, so that is the best way to migrate to Australia. Again, now when you come here, having these qualifications definitely add value, and then it would be an advantage for you to get into a proper job, and then start your career without a lot of interruptions if you're transferring from Sri Lanka to Australia. Um, I think, and also personally, as Dr. Anita was also mentioned, the I don't know anyone if you have heard about. Normally, we call people. There are different ratios how people learn. So we have a ratio called 70-20-10. So only 10% of the classroom education will, people will learn from only 10% from the classroom education. But the important thing is, without that 10%, even though 10% is a small portion of 100%, you can't really practice yourself, or rather 20% is getting support from someone, and then like observing when other person is doing, and then probably getting coached, and 70% is doing by yourself. That is how you learn. But the catch is, you can't learn 70% if you don't have that 10% classroom knowledge. That is where the certifications are really important, to get the basics right, and then only you can start practicing and then observing if someone is doing, and learning, going through this learning curve. So that is where it's very important for us to understand, having that standard, learn correctly through professionals, and then only you can really practice those when you really get into your hands-on experience. So it is really important to get that basics right, then only you will get a proper understanding of any subject. I think, Kushan, that's pretty much I have to cover, unless otherwise if anyone got any specific questions, or even Kushan, you want to highlight anything?
I think students, if you have any questions regarding, especially, I'll be taking you through the content part a little later, after the session. So if you have any specific questions, like the type of, the qualification that is being looked at in the manufacturing or the services domain in Australian markets, because why we specifically brought in Dharshana is not only because of he has this extensive knowledge in manufacturing, but also not only, he's having this domain experience in the operational excellence, but also he's in Australia, and we have many professionals in different countries whom we are working with. But a lot of Sri Lankans actually do go to Australia. It's more like second home to Sri Lankans at the moment. So that's why we thought of getting Dharshana connected to Lean Six Sigma program, and as well as our manufacturing programs. So if you have any questions regarding how well these certifications are looked at in the Australian market, I think Dharshana explained it well. But if you have any further clarification required, so please take, this is the time for you. By the way, මේ program එක English වලින් විතරක් යන එකක් නෙමෙයි. අපි both the languages පාවිච්චි කරනවා. So we just gave a startup because Anita is joining from overseas. ඒකින්ද අපි තමයි මේක English වලින් පටන් ගත්තේ. But going forward අපි මේකේ languages දෙකම පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඔයාලට ඕන language එකකින් ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. සිංහල ඉංග්‍රීසි කියන languages දෙකෙන් ඔයාලට ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද කෙනෙක්ට හිතෙන්න පුළුවන් අපි මේක තනිකරම English වලින් යන program එකක් කියලා. එහෙම නැහැ. So ඔයාලට freedom එක තියෙනවා ඕන language එකෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාලට chat එකෙන් උනත් message කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාලට තියෙන මොන හරි ප්‍රශ්න clarify කරගන්න. හරි. ඒකින්ද බය වෙන්න එපා. ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න කිසිම වෙලාවක ලැජ්ජා වෙන්න එපා. මම හිතනවා ඒක හොඳ opportunity එකක් ඔයාලට දේවල් clarify කරගන්න. මොන හරි ගැටලු ප්‍රශ්න ක්ලියර් කරගන්න තියෙනවා නම් ඔයාලට පුළුවන් අපිට කතා කරන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් chat එකේ message එකක් එවන්න.
All right. Shana kiwage, Kushan kiwage, මොන හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් chat එකෙන් දාන්න. It's 11 p.m. right now. මම මොකක් වෙලාවට තව විනාඩි 5ක් විතර join වෙලා ඉඳලා I might be leaving, but again happy to answer any questions if you have, and otherwise I will see you when you guys are starting the course, and once you register to the course, so definitely I will see you with more specific examples, and then I'm happy to share my experience and then the knowledge as we continue with the program.